Yeah, oh, it's from Libby. That we would have had a chance to chat before.
I think I'm just tired. I forgot my Eric's. He got me. I'm sorry.
What happens when Eric comes back?
He got me. I'm sorry you're tired. I know you don't want to go to counseling. You're so annoyed.
Very thoughtful, Eric. Next month is a great.
Otherwise, it would make Christmas Day.
Hey.
And I wasn't going to be there.
I know.
You think you get time off for Christmas? I told him my car, I was like, I'll put it on when I have time, and I never had time.
I totally won't go there. They had an emergency meeting. They wanted some police lights.
I finally was like, forget it.
I wanted to look at
Processing right now. You shoot.
I stole it cash first.
Did you?
I don't know why you just don't ask.
An old one?
No. Well, Jill gave it to me. So.
What?
We missed you Monday night.
Oh, that was last night.
Yes, first time.
I've been working on my house.
But you know what? I don't want to hear excuses.
None. I'll show you.
What are you doing?
Here's the bathroom.
It's a long agenda, but there's
I'm painting the ceiling. I put Venetian
I
plaster
feel like
on one
it
wall.
could be.
Yeah,
I think it's but there's not
I can.
much to.
A lot of people give the like sections.
Now it's
Yeah,
like
I
as
don't
soon
know.
as all you have to do is just knock on the IT door. And just
Okay,
Putting hardwood
that
floors
group in
down,
the
too.
back right corner.
This is like a
Over in there.
I was gonna do floors.
The lady under the clock is
isn't that how
No.
this?
I stained my concrete. I didn't want to,
But they don't.
so I went and
Oh,
bought
those
hardwood.
few that were taught.
9 hours she's here.
Oh no,
So I was gonna do an act.
for some reason,
On why?
And paint the crown molding white.
And it all makes sense.
So it just kept piling up. In my room, and I'm like, I have nowhere to sleep. That's why I picture the bed's in the middle. I have my son to take it back in.
There's no one.
So that's all I've been doing. And I'm just sick.
Yeah. No, I get it. At the end of the day.
Just want to make you aware.
Opioid mostly. There's no set time for you to get out. Well, Carrie
It's like a
briefly
council
called
meeting in here.
Top results is what the Elks lost.
No. Well, I have to summarize. Some of this is real repetitive. They said the same things in different ways because they're all very
still they, and they approved it, so I got it. For her,
very eloquent
it
now.
would be $172,000
For a year.
And we keep, on top of that, we got $25,000. You're like, big crowd. Got some more money from that test. We got started. How you doing, Mr.
we're late. I'm doing well.
Good afternoon. I call to order the work session for the Sierra Vista City Council for 10 December.
We're going to start tonight with a presentation from the Sister Cities Association Student Exchange. So guys, come up and do it. You got 15 minutes. We got a very tight schedule today. And I apologize for starting you a little late today.
Guys, right here, there's your presentation. Somebody has to push the buttons and you talk into the microphone. Okay?
Sorry. Come on, it goes this way. Hi there.
Hi.
I am Miss Sweeney. I am the English teacher at Buena High School. I am one of the sponsors at the school with the Sister Cities Club, and I was the chaperone this year with this fine group of students. So we are going to go through the slides and show you a little bit of our adventure. All right, so this is me, quick. And our adventure started at Tucson, as like any other trip. And here we are. We made it into the area and lost our luggage, but successfully we received our luggage the following day. Real quick before I have the students take over, we met with the mayor of Radoboyle the following day, and they did a presentation for us. And then we met with the Mexican counterpart the following day. So it's 8 students from our area, 8 students from Cananea, and then 16 from the German area. So on that day we all met. And, our adventure started. So I'm going to let Angel take over, and we'll go from there.
So hi, my name is Angel. My portion of the presentation is the city of Dresden. So a few facts on the history. So there's a North Bank and the South Bank, and the North Bank is the new town, South Bank is the old town. Dresden was, its original village was located on the South Bank. It was rebuilt 2 times, one time after World War II, and then the second time after a massive fire that burnt down the whole city. So these are some old pictures. This is the Frauenacht, and this is just a Protestant church, and then those are pictures of after the first obliteration after World War II. And then this is some present day pictures. That's the present day, the Frauenacht thing. And then some present day facts. It's the capital of Saxony, which is in eastern Germany. It's the 3rd largest city after Berlin and Leipzig. And its population as of 2016 was 543,800, about. And then these are just more of the things we did. So these are museums that we went to in Dresden. And then this is my time in Dresden. So this is my host here, Maggie, on the top left. And then just these pictures are just different, just places that I went to while I was there. And overall, it was an amazing trip. I was very lucky to go.
Thank you.
All right, so I had government. So the government in Germany is a lot different. It was a really good experience compared to America. So in Germany, the 2 main key components that I've noticed is that the cops in Germany aren't as involved as they are in the United States. So like when you're driving a car and we have the speed limits, if you're driving past the speed, driving faster, a cop will pull you over in the United States. But the government controls that in Germany. So when you're driving, they have little speed traps that are set up by the government. And so you'll get you'll get a fine in the mail, which is around $10 to $15, and that was a major key component that kind of threw me off. That was super interesting, super cool to notice. Another one was that there are many protests in Germany that don't really happen in the United States or are very much brought up to your attention. So I believe there was 3 protests that happened while we were there, and we saw one in Berlin, it was super cool because I only ever have seen them in the news. So it was cool to see that in person, and they were fighting against like climate change, and they were fighting to make a change. So it was super cool. It was super cool to see and notice, and yes, for the government.
Hi, I'm McKenna. I'm a senior at high school, and my topic was the education system in Germany. So we all were split up into different schools throughout our trip there. With our host students, we got to go to school with them. This is kind of just a breakdown of the German school system. It's very different from ours. Throughout the whole time, I noticed there's a bunch of different elements through our grade levels incorporated to the high school level there. The biggest difference to me was the rigor of their classes. Like, my host student was like a freshman equivalent, and she was doing stuff that I did in my junior year of high school at Bueno, which was really cool to see how advanced they are in the classes that they're taking. And just how their schedule is set up. They have like a block system, which I know some middle schools in town do, but they're in school from 8 in the morning to 4 o'clock. They have an optional last period that a lot of them took. But also something that was really different was the teachers don't have a classroom. The teachers move with the students. So it's not like you can always find one teacher in 1,300 classroom. You'll have to look at the board in the day and, oh, where are they going to be during first hour, which was very different from the American high school experience. These are some of the pictures of the schools. This was my school in the top left. It did not look like a school from outside. Some of the schools were very modern. Some of them were very old. Like mine was a very historic building. Some of the classrooms had technology and some of them didn't. But we all had a really different school experience, which was really awesome. This is one of the days Ms. Sweeney did a presentation at one of the schools to their English class about American school, and a couple of us students went with her as well, answered their questions, told them about our high school experiences, the clubs we do, the sports we get to do in school that they don't have a part of their school system.
Okay. How close do I have to be? Okay, so my name is Zachary Sweeney, and while I was in Germany, I was supposed to compare my host family life compared to my regular family life. So I saw a lot more similarities than differences, so I'm going to start with similarities first. So we both woke up, and then we ate breakfast, and either the mom or dad would go to work, depending on each work day, because sometimes the mom would be out first or the dad would be out first. And then Peter and I would walk to school, just like I would take the car to school here. And then after school, he would go do his sport, and he would come back home to eat dinners. And his bedtime was 9, just like how I go to sports after school. And then my bedtime is also 9 here. So, and then the only difference I really saw was the housing, because they have a bunch of apartment complexes or house duplexes. So I got suited in a house duplex instead of somewhere like in the United States where you can buy your own house. They all have to share with their neighbors. And this was my host brother, Peter. He was actually pretty great. He would make sure that I would are you okay, Zach? Do you need anything? But me and him really bonded, so I really enjoyed it. Click it again. I didn't do the slide, though. Oh. I didn't do this. Okay. So, continue. Okay. So, these are pictures throughout Dresden. Dude, someone else do this. I didn't do this slide. So, this was down at the corners, me and my sister doing our little sightseeing. During this period, the German students would explain what each building meant and where we were walking through. This was when we were mostly taking trains around town, as they would do in their daily life, as we would just use cars.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Clark, and I did the presentation part on Berlin, Germany. So what we did is we traveled to Berlin and we stayed there overnight. And what we did was a lot of walking, and almost 8 miles of walking. The Berlin Wall was very beautiful, and it had memorial pieces, it had art on it, and it was a very dedicated piece of art. When we were done, we saw different parts of Berlin. We saw the Brandenburg Gate, which we stopped to take a photo in front of, and we went to the Potsdamer Plaza, and we shopped there, and we also went to a memorial for the Holocaust. We just had a lot of good memories throughout Berlin, and it was a very memorable experience.
Hi, I'm Carrie Phillips. I had free time the family days that we had in Germany. For most of the Germany trips, from most of the family days, my family took me to go like sightseeing. We went to Old Dresden. Old Dresden was probably one of my favorite. It was like a town center kind of, and it had a bunch of like small shops and everything like that. That would definitely be my favorite part. We also on one of the family days, they took me on a boat down the river, and I got to see like everything on the sides and like different castles and stuff that was on the sides. We also went to a few cafes that were very popular, and they told me like it was kind of like a cake cafe. So I got one of the famous cakes, and it had like a type of alcohol in it. It was pretty good.
Rum cake gets you every time.
We after the cafe, we went up a cable cart, and they took me to this mountain, and it was you could basically see all over or all above Dresden, and you got to see like the river and all like the town, and it was very, very beautiful. Yeah, sorry. So one of the castles up here in the top left is there's a restaurant right there. So there was like a porch. We sat outside on the porch, and we got to see over the old part of Dresden. And then the bottom right is a picture where we went up the cable cart, and we got to see the whole town of Dresden and the river. And then there's a few pictures of the boat ride, and then my favorite castle that we saw was a castle in the middle of a lake. That was probably my favorite. I got to go inside of it and take lots of pictures, but we just basically did sightseeing, and they took me out to famous places to eat. Here we went, these were some of our activities. We did cooking, bouldering, and modern dancing as well. That was definitely interesting. The bouldering was pretty fun. It was difficult at first, but I definitely got to get the hang of it after a while. The cooking was fun. I definitely enjoyed the food. One of the German teachers helped us. My group did the soup. This was our hiking activity. The hiking activity, I want to say like we walked, I don't know, like 11 miles? About 11 miles. The climate was very humid, so it was definitely a change for us, and it was very hard. But on the way back, the German teacher bought us all ice cream because there was like a little like village that we saw, so she bought us ice cream, and it was probably one of my favorite ice creams there because I love mango, and it was like absolutely like it tasted exactly like mango ice cream. So it was my favorite activity.
Hi, I'm Felix. My slides are about Prague, which is good because it was my favorite part. It's the capital of the Czech Republic, and when we were visiting, a euro was about 24 Czech crowns. So that was great. We got to buy a lot of things. The architecture there is really, really beautiful, and they had like a bunch of churches, and it was just gorgeous. And the population is 1.309 people, million people. Oh no, I'm sorry. And the area is 1.9, whatever. You can read it. I'm sorry. Yeah, and here are some pictures of when we went. There was a lot of really nice statues. We rode a small train that was for tourists through the town, and we saw like the whole town. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Alexa Pena, and for my slides, I'm going to be talking briefly about like the comparison and contrast between Arizona and Saxony. So here at the very top left, you can see a castle, which is one of the many like unique architectures of Germany, and this one is called the Schloss Neuschwanstein, and it's one of the most famous castles in Germany. And as you can see here on the bottom left, while my family was driving me home back from one of our activities, we drove past this hill of houses, which I thought were big mansions, but they were just castles. And so I thought that was crazy because, you know, you don't drive home here and just see like big castles on the side of the road. But we do have beautiful mountain ranges and sunsets, so our population and community, Saxony is actually one of the most popular states in eastern Germany, and Arizona is the 6th largest state in the U.S. So the community, right here at the bottom left, I put a picture where the town square of Dresden, and there are these local artists with their cultural outfits playing cultural music on the violin, and I thought that was really cool because I noticed that Saxony is a very diverse community, especially because they're surrounded by many different countries. And I met many people that speak more than 2 languages, and I thought that was really impressive. And it's the same here in Arizona because it's also very diverse, especially because we live right next to the border, and because of our bases in Hawaii and Germany, they get to move here and experience our cultures and we experience theirs. Cities, these are just the largest cities of each state, where Phoenix is the largest city of Arizona, and it's also the capital. And it's the only city in Arizona with over 1 million residents. And Leipzig is not the capital of Saxony, it's Dresden, but it's still the largest, and it's considered the most livable city in Germany. And I did the math, and it turns out that Phoenix is 4.5 times larger than Leipzig, so in size, you can put Leipzig 4 times into Phoenix. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Questions?
One quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell me if the Berlin Wall is broken into all kinds of sections and pieces, or is it still pretty much intact?
So there were pieces. Yeah, there was like a little bit of both. There were some pieces that were broken, but there were also others that were fully intact, and they were just like standing tall. Yeah.
And there's artwork all over?
Yeah, it's like fully decked out. Like it was painted like fully. There's no space to put anything.
That's great. Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you very much, Ms. Swinney. We really appreciate you bringing these great students there. I know they've benefited greatly. Suzanne and our friends from the Sister Cities. We appreciate organization. We appreciate being able to partner with you on doing this every year. So, again, thanks. Now move to item A, the December 12th council meetings. Obviously, we'll call the meeting to order, have the invocation and pledge, acceptance of the agenda. We have a number of presentations to include the fact that we'll have the new trailer for the animal control shelter out front for people to go to before the meeting. We'll have certificates of appreciation for outgoing commissioners. We'll have an award for the CAFR, and we'll have 2 presentations with robotics teams from the high school. We'll have the what's that? We'll have the city manager give his report. Chuck, is there anything that you'd like to share with us now that you're going to cover on Thursday?
Primarily the hiring of the new CCOM director, Mr. Mayor. So I'll have some more details about him, but he's planning to start on Monday. So.
Okay, that item 2 is the consent agenda, and we have a number of things, including minutes, a number of reappointments to commissions, as well as renewal of an off-track betting wagering facility. Are any comments or questions for the staff on those items? There's 10 of them. Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to the tabled item number 3. May we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So just to quickly recap, I'm not going to go over the entire report that you've received that's attached to this item. And I will point out that there is a mistake in the executive summary of the report. It says 10% increase. That should be 15%. We'll get the copy that's attached to the item and on the website updated here shortly. So just to give a very quick recap, we've spoken about how over the past few years there has been a number of changes that have affected the refuse fund, including changes to state law in 2015 that opened the commercial refuse business to private competition, followed by the collapse of the recyclable market around the world last year. So when the state law changed regarding commercial refuse, the city went from 1,375 commercial customers in July 2015 to 188 in fiscal year 18-19, which of course resulted in a massive loss to the refuse fund. Other costs changed as well during that time, including the landfill tipping fee. Then in 2017, council approved increasing the residential refuse rates by 15% to help reduce the shortfall. And staff shared at that time that that was only part of the increase needed, and it was known that more changes would be coming in the future. So here today in this specific item, we're talking about certain fees because staff reviewed the services that make up the refuse fund and found initially that green waste and bulk waste special pickups, the compost program, and the residential dumpster program needed fee increases to better cover costs. And after a lot of review and discussion on various options, you have the report I mentioned that David Felix prepared for you. I'm not, again, going to go over the whole thing, but staff are more than happy to answer any questions if you have any questions specifically about anything in that report. I'll jump right to the fee proposal included at the end of the report and Table B at the end of the resolution to go over what staff is proposing changing to the refuse fees. So the residential dumpster fees would stay the same as initially proposed a few months ago, changing the options, the 5 options for residential dumpsters to 2, and setting fees for those at $153.24 and $181.64 for 3 cubic yard and 6 cubic yard dumpsters respectively. The compost fees, we're recommending green waste pickups and drop-offs for Sierra Vista customers remain free. The savings from the amount of green waste diverted from the landfill per year means that it makes sense to continue offering that service to customers at no cost. Then non-city residents and businesses would pay $15 to drop off green waste, and the price of compost would increase $10 a cubic yard from $15 to $25. The bulky item special pickup cost would increase to $50, of which there are relatively few of those per year. So together, that increase in fees would mean an estimated $274,012 in increased revenue, combined with a proposed 15% rate increase, which is covered in the next item. That would be an additional $361,960, which would be a total estimated amount of $767,626 in revenue, which would cover the estimated fiscal year 18-19 and 19-20 losses to the fund. In addition, the city would save about $140,000 by privatizing recycling, which is the agenda item then after the rate increase item, and closing the recycling drop-off facility. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this item.
Yeah, we're still on item number 3, right?
On the fees, yes, Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just one point, and Victoria covered it very well, but all 3 items that are before you with regards to the refuse funds kind of needs to be taken together as one proposal. All 3 things are probably necessary to help the fund stay in good shape going forward. So So all three proposals are probably necessary to make that happen.
Okay, questions or discussion?
I do want to express my appreciation for David taking the time to put all this together. It's this very comprehensive, deep analysis is exactly what I needed to. Maybe all of us needed, but I'm only going to speak for myself. Seeing it in black and white, justifying what we need to do and where. I can vote with my eyes wide open now, so I feel comfortable going forward on Thursday. So I just wanted to say thank you to David and all of staff that helped prepare this.
Anybody else? Okay, so I'm going to make an assumption that I don't think anybody in politics should ever do, but I'm going to assume this is going to come off the table. Yeah. And should it come off the table, well, I should say when it comes off the table, whether that's Thursday or later, I will ask for some discussion. I would hope that after the discussion, somebody would be willing to make a motion to take the Appendix B as is shown in the document and amend the motion with substituting Appendix B for Appendix A. That's also was the original proposal. And then we vote on that. Once we vote, well, we bring that on the table. We discuss it. We vote on it. If it carries, then we have to vote on the resolution as amended, just so everybody understands what the procedures are. Okay? Any other questions or discussion on item number 3?
Can I just make a request that we just have, if there's like a one pager that can be shown, or even one slide that can be shown, so it's really clear to the public.
Well, and that's would be the slide on the Appendix B where it shows all the fees. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we need to show that during that meeting. Okay. No. That meets your concern?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we go on to item number 4. Again, Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this resolution concerns the proposed 15% residential rate increase. A 60-day notice of the possible vote on the proposed rate increase was published on the city's website as required by Arizona revised statutes. The resolution increases the residential refuse rates by 15%, and the effective date would be March 1st, 2020. And real quick, those fees would change. A 45-gallon container would increase by $1.56 per month to a total of $17.19. 65-gallon containers would increase $2.58 per month for a total of $19.81. A 95-gallon container would increase $2.95 per month for a total of $22.62. And a 195-gallon container would increase $4.16 per month to a total of $31.89. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or discussion?
Yeah. Okay. So you're already looking at me, so you. Okay. So, 15%, along with the fees and the recycling changing, would only get the enterprise fund whole. It wouldn't plan for future capital. It wouldn't get us back in a.
Future capital included in the depreciation. If you look on page, the estimated statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in the fund net position, the depreciation that's accounted for there is for capital expenses.
Oh, is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And we would be looking at the efficiency and operations before considering another rate increase.
Yes, so we
those
included
items.
That in your report. I can run through them if you
I
want.
highlighted it, but it was in the last item. I probably should have mentioned it then.
So there are a few things, Councilmember Humphrey, that the staff will continue looking at to make the refuse operation more efficient. So we will continue doing that.
Okay. I think I don't have any other notes.
Anybody on this side? All right then. Thank you very much, Ms. Yarborough. We next go on to item number 5, Ms. Osborne.
Mayor, members of council, as a result of the changes in the global recycling market, the city has suspended its curbside recycling pickup program. Recently, private recycling collection companies have expressed interest to the city, and these companies have requested a revision to the city's code of ordinances to allow private recycling collectors to collect and remove recyclable materials from residential properties and business establishments. Staff has reviewed Chapter 52 of the City Code of Ordinances and proposed the following changes as shown in Exhibit A. Section 5202 definitions have 3 revisions. The definitions for collector and licensee were revised to include wording for recycling. The definition for county solid waste disposal facility had a typo, so we're cleaning up the language in the code. Section 5203 solid waste collection system established. In paragraph A, clarifies that private collectors who collect and remove recyclable materials from residential properties shall obtain a city business license as pursuant to Chapter 110 of the City Code. Further, recyclable materials may be collected and removed from commercial establishment by private collectors who have obtained a commercial solid waste license pursuant to provisions in Section 5215 through 5223 of the chapter. In Section 5209, prohibited acts in paragraph E, subsection 3, recyclable materials collected, transported, hauled, or conveyed within city limits by an approved licensed collector was added as an exception. And then lastly, in Section 5218, insurance, in paragraph B, we added all licensees for residential recycling services shall secure, maintain, and keep in force throughout the term of the business license insurance coverages as required by state law. Staff anticipates that privatizing recycling will save the city about $140,000. So the resolution before you will declare the amendments as shown in Exhibit A a public record for 30 days. At the end of the 30-day period, any public comments received will be considered, and an ordinance containing all amendments to Chapter 52 will be brought before you again for final adoption.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. After reading through this, Chuck, it occurred to me that what we're really doing is changing the code so that if a individual with some entrepreneurial spirit that thought they could do home recycling commercially and make a profit, would be able to do that now when under the old code it was actually prohibited.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. Under the old code, it was considered residential pickup and therefore was prohibited. This allows anybody to come in. We're not franchising it. It's open to competition.
So it's an individual homeowner would be able to contract with a hauler, essentially, on their own for recycling only.
That's correct.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Just to further talk about it, because I know Rachel really wants to hear all this. Individuals then, as the mayor said, can hire whoever is a hauler and has all the proper licenses and stuff. The city will then no longer have a drop-off place.
That would be correct, Mrs. Kell.
And, well, just looking into the future, if these haulers if it doesn't work out, is the city then no longer going to still do recycling? Is that the sense of it?
Well, Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, I think it would still be relatively simple to stand up our own recycling center in the event that no competition is in place to pick up the recycling. Right now, we're in contact with at least 2 companies that are interested in doing it, so hopefully they and others will go in so that won't have to happen. But in the event that it doesn't work, we can still stand up our system.
Okay.
And that's a good point, because one of my concerns when I read this is transition period.
That's good, yeah.
Obviously, the ordinance will go into effect at a certain date. It should be voted on. But the bottom line is, it's gonna take time for those two companies to contract with individuals, because they're gonna have to do that on their own. There's gonna be no mass, I'm assuming no mass marketing or no quick mass marketing anyway. So what do we do in the interim if we just shut down the facility? And that's a,
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we plan on shutting it down immediately. I mean, obviously, we have another month here of public comment period, and I think it would behoove us to work and talk with the companies that potentially would like to pick up recycling and see how long it might take them.
And what really concerns me is right now, we as a city have taken on the responsibility to do what limited recycling we do. And the ordinance will be in effect before we can basically say we're gonna have a period where eventually we'll draw down by X date, 90 days out, 180 days out, whatever it's gonna be, city stops recycling. And we need to be able to give that plan to the folks. So if they wanna recycle, they know how much time they have to contact or be contacted with these companies.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. It's probably not, I haven't talked to the attorney, but it's probably not appropriate for us to tout any one business over the other for the recycling. But again, the folks need to know when the transition period is and that kind of thing, and that's not anywhere, I don't see that anywhere in the ordinance, or which probably shouldn't be, but we should have a plan to be able to implement that and announce that at the same time we start the transition, or before we start the transition, actually.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll make sure that we develop an implementation plan. By the next time you vote on this, we should have a good idea.
We need to be briefed on that plan as part of it before we have the vote, and I will feel more comfortable doing that.
We can do that at your January meeting then. Okay. It's my hope to get this stood up pretty quickly because unfortunately our numbers show that recycling levels are 5% of what they were when we were picking them up curbside. So hopefully by implementing, we will get more recycling in town as a result of the added convenience.
Okay.
One other comment. Yes, ma'am. Could you do a kind of a cursory discussion about the savings of $100,000? Where are we going to recognize those savings?
Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Calhoun, one is in staffing for the actual recycling center and the hauling and potential. Right now, there's losses on some of the items that are recycling, most notably cardboard. So that will all go away as a result of us getting out of that business. And then hopefully we'll see some cost avoidance as a result of an increase in recycling because that will be diverted from the landfill as well. And then tipping fees will be avoided as a result.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not sure why it has to be a either or. Like, why do we have to have either allow private industry to come and do curbside pickup or allow the city's recycling center to be open? Why can't both exist? If we're at 5% of the levels of recycling when curbside pickup was happening, then offering some curbside pickup to those who can afford it is, let's be real about that. There are still those who want to recycle or who are willing to drive their recycling out. Why does it have to be either or?
Well, Mayor Mueller, Councilmember Pacheco, I don't really think it is necessarily an either-or situation because the county will still be operating at the transfer station and they're still picking up materials. So we just need to let the public know that, if they have the option of dropping it off at the transfer station, they'll still be able to do that.
No, I was just gonna say,
Because
Chuck,
and the other thing is, we won't generate any savings if we continue to stand up our own recycling center.
And it's dependent to make the fund whole, right?
Yeah,
$140,000 savings.
And not only that, for the amount of recyclables we're getting and then taking the risk to the marketplace like we are with cardboard right now, makes it a risky venture.
So I guess the answer to your question is they're still able to take the stuff to the county drop-off site to recycle there. To the station.
It's not free.
Unfortunately, it is not free. No,
no.
it is not free.
I did have one more. I have a question. Do we have a contract with Republic, the current company that we're doing single stream drop off with? Like, are we stuck with them for so long?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Humphrey, there is a contract with them, but it's not one that we could not get out of whenever we chose.
There's no penalty if we.
No.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping we can figure out a solution to bring back curbside, even if it's privatized, because I know it has to be convenient for some people. Clearly, it has to be convenient for most people to recycle. Even if we want, like as a community, I know we want to recycle. It just has to be easier. So that's my only question, though. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I mean, we've only had our recycling center open for what, 6 months? I mean, how much did we invest in this recycling center to just shut it down 6 months?
Not very much of anything.
Not too much, other than the staffing costs and.
Which is
costs
just moving them
and-
over. They
and
were already
moving the
staffed.
recyclables.
Do you feel like 6 months is an adequate period of time to make a decision that it's losing money, let's stop and quit and give up?
There's no question
6
that
months
we're,
in?
there's no question that we're losing money, and the 95% drop-off in recycling materials that we're experiencing is a big number to overcome.
Have we been getting any comments from the public related to this issue at all?
Can't say that we have.
I haven't seen any yet. I assume in 30 days we will.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Do we have any idea of how much it's going to cost to do the curbside recycling? How much they may or may not be charging? I apologize for my voice.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Wolf, we don't know exactly how much the companies would charge, but I have spoken with both companies over the past year and a half. I know that the one company said that they generally charge $10 to $15 a month for 2 pickups. The other company, who is local, I don't know what they charge, but they operate under a similar model where you'd pay a monthly subscription fee and it'd be picked up from your home.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hey, I'm hoping, I mean, I can go home and put it together, but I'm hoping we can get before Thursday's vote, can we get a breakdown of the proposals leading up to this proposal so we can compare all the proposals? Because each proposal gets more things that we have to take away more money, but if you go back to the other proposals, those were the right proposals.
No, we didn't have complete information, though.
You're asking for.
Okay.
Asking for, like,
Because we're talking about
from
curbside recycling.
A to D, how did we get there?
I'm talking refuge as a whole, because right now we're tying recycling into how we can save refuse. So, but last week or last council meeting, we were saving it with a 10% rate increase. Well, now it's 15%. So each time we get a proposal, it goes up, and we're still short money. And I'm just trying to figure out, if we'd have voted 6 months ago, we'd have just had a fee increase.
Which is why we didn't vote.
Exactly. So I want to get all these straight so I know, okay, now I'm tying recycling, going commercialized, which I think is a great idea, into saving a refuse system, which if without that $140,000, we can't operate. So I know, and I'm reading it, but
It's in the report.
but all the proposals aren't, Mr. Mayor. That's what I'm asking for. Each proposal made to council up to the date, can we get that summarized tab A or tab B like we have for each one we received?
We can definitely do that, but I think you need to make a little more clear is exactly what you're asking for, because I think most of the stuff that you're asking for is already in there.
So in that report, the reason that a lot of that has changed is because in the beginning, we didn't have complete information.
Oh, no, I understand that, which is fine, and I'm glad we went back and looked at it. I just want to make sure we're not tying things in just to tie things in. And right now, everything I hear going forward is that we have to have this to do this, and it keeps adding up. And I just want to make sure, and I guess it's like Councilwoman and yourself said about the last thing. I want to know and have a clear head when I say yes or no, especially if I'm going to make the people pay more money, what exactly we're paying for and why. And right now, I don't, because it keeps changing.
Are you saying
I know,
too that
and-
the savings that Victoria mentioned by allowing
Yes, ma'am.
that 100,000, 140,000 is being used to bolster the garbage system, the refuse system?
Mayor Mueller,
Is that-
Councilmember Calhoun, that's correct. Going through and, especially in the situation that developed with cardboard and trying to work with the county, we're looking at potential ongoing losses in recycling, which then, of course, have to be recovered, some other way if we don't try to operate the system more effectively. And certainly, Mr. Benning, we can get you more information. I think a lot of, in terms of the cost breakdown of the fund and the proposals, that is in the report, but we can get you what, was done in the past. I think from our standpoint as staff, although this has taken a long time to get to this point, I do believe that by putting together the information and getting all the analyses together that we really needed to get to, I think, we learned a lot through the process, and we're able to come to this point with these recommendations to this point. So I think it was time well spent. But,
Oh, I do too.
So additional information, you can still get that from staff if you feel you
Right.
need it. Once you've gone through
Yeah,
the
you can
report.
visit with me or Victoria.
Okay.
And we'll bring David in and we'll be happy to go over that.
No, I'm happy. I got the percentage I want.
Anybody else?
One more comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I just would really like to see a lengthy transition period. I mean, starting a new business or bringing a new business to town, we all know that takes a while to get people to know that you exist and that you're here operating and doing whatever work you're doing. And I would really recommend a good transition period for that.
And that was part of the emphasis of my question, is because we're gonna need to be able to get the word out, and I don't know, obviously, we can't promote the companies, they need to figure out how to promote themselves. We have the 30-day period, we make a decision. I don't remember an effective date in the plan, Chuck, as to when we would transition, but obviously, we have time before the end of the fiscal year to have a transition period.
Yeah, there was no time frame specified in the proposal, so.
Okay, so.
We need to do a little bit more work.
Yep, I agree.
To do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Has this been a topic of discussion at the EAC at all? Or the EAC, at the Environmental Advisory Commission?
Has this been
Environmental Affairs
talked
Commission.
about this? It is not.
Has not not to the degree we've discussed it. That's a
I just
really good
would think that it would be a good topic for that commission to also discuss.
Maybe we should have that presentation to the EAC.
Well-
Wednesday at 3:30.
Well, this is just a public hearing, right?
But it's a good time to.
Yeah.
Well, normally, on an issue like this, we would not wait to the last minute, which is what we're talking about, before we would get input from a commission.
True.
So I'm not sure how that's gonna flow.
We could consider it a public.
Yeah.
Just a
Okay.
question.
Anything else on this issue?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Ms. Osborne. Appreciate your work on this. Next, we can move on to new business, item number 6. Mr. McLaughlin.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're at the adoption stage on this item, having undergone a 30-day review period. Our guidance for the proposed amendments comes from the city's general plan, Vista 2030. A supporting strategy to goal 12.1, promote quality affordable rental housing, is to encourage new regulations to permit accessory dwelling units. We construe this to mean to make the process more efficient while ensuring quality compatible construction. The proposed amendments would replace the gray matter associated with the conditional use permitting process with objective design development standards that are commonly associated with accessory dwelling units. The permitting process would entail a compliance check by planning and zoning staff for development code requirements before being sent to the building staff for building code compliance. Adjacent property owners would be notified of the permit request and would have an opportunity to comment. Comments pertinent to the review standards would be considered. We received comments from 5 individuals on this ordinance. 2 residents are against requiring written notice to neighbors. 2 public comments express concern that accessory dwelling units will be used as short-term rentals. As you're aware, the Arizona legislature prohibits towns and cities from regulating short-term rentals, albeit a whole house, apartment, or accessory dwelling unit. We retain the authority, however, to regulate against any public nuisances caused by short-term rentals being used as party houses, which hasn't been an issue here in Sierra Vista. You've already discussed and debated the issue raised on allowing separate addresses and utility meters. No change is recommended to allowing this. One person favors removing the requirement that any addition or newly detached accessory dwelling unit be designed in a complementary manner to the main house. We received another comment expressing concern that the ordinance may conflict with deed restrictions in HOA neighborhoods. If the ordinance is approved, we'll add a notarized affidavit for the property owner to sign with the permit application, attesting that they've investigated and found no deed restrictions prohibiting an accessory dwelling unit from being built on the property in the manner that's proposed. I spoke with the commenter, and he concurred with this approach. Our recommendation is to proceed with the adoption of ordinance number 2019-08 as proposed, finding the amendments to be consistent with the city's general plan. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions or discussion for Mr. McLaughlin? Ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Matt answered a couple of my questions. I was going to ask you about the HOA, the CCNR's comment, because that was a good point to bring up. My notes are kind of sloppy, so bear with me. So we are, even though the commission, and they weren't all there, I understand, 3 of them voted not in favor of the way we're going to vote on it. Right.
That's correct.
So
our recommendation is contrary in a couple of respects to the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation.
And that's good because I think this is the first time I agree with the dissenting opinion of the commission. I agree that one of them said the conditional use permit was viewed as over-regulatory, which may have the effect of discouraging construction. And have we only approved 1 ADU this year? Mm-hmm. So I would agree with that.
That's not coming from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Are you talking about from the commenter?
Nope, this is from the commission, the ones who were against it. So I'm like, I agree with that.
That was the comment. Yeah. Okay. In terms of regulating the occupancy or setting occupancy requirements for the accessory dwelling unit, the majority felt that was over-regulatory, so that was not considered with the final proposal. But that was part of the discussion in the workshops leading up to the public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And to address the concern of the commission that said it would change the character, I couldn't find any data saying that it would lower property values or change the characters. Is there anything out there to substantiate the claim?
Specific to the
commission. I'm
addressing?
The commission.
For the ADU in general.
The commission said
the character of the neighborhood.
It would bring a multifamily residential character to an area, which I'm not sure what
yeah, there's no data.
Okay.
No, I don't. I think the majority of the commission is in support of accessory dwelling units. There are a couple aspects in the original proposal that there were conflicting opinions on the commission about, and one was the separate utility meters and the addressing, creating the appearance that a single-family property has changed to a multifamily property, the perception. But there is no, analysis on that question in terms of impact on property values. I would think if an accessory dwelling unit is designed consistent with the design development standards, it would be compatible with the character of a single-family neighborhood.
I agree. I just wanted to address some of the concerns on here. Because the way I see it, I have an ADU where my shop is, and no one knows my neighbors don't know it's there unless I bring them over, and they're not even aware. So I think for the most part, they're invisible. Okay, Gwen. She knows when I get passionate about something, I get annoying about it. And then I'm trying to think of the other concerns. The limit of 2 people, was that the recommendation of the commission to set a limit like that?
Yes.
And
there was
what were the
agreement.
numbers that they were considering? It was
only 2, and again, accessory means is subordinate to the principal use of the property as a family living arrangement. It's a function of size and square footage. 1 bedroom maximum within the allowable footprint would only be conducive for no more than 2 people living in an accessory
in
dwelling unit.
Arizona, yeah. In Hawaii, we had 4 people living in 700 square feet, 2 bedrooms. So I know it's possible to have a nice, clean home, but I'm not arguing to change it. Maybe, what if the 2 people don't want to share a bedroom?
It's the intensity of the use and trying to minimize that within a single-family residential district. So commonly tied to accessory dwelling unit regulations is not only a square footage cap, but also an occupancy limit. And what we're recommending is consistent with national standards, in my view.
Yeah, I know you're right, because when I
Based
looked
on
up,
our review of similar ordinances.
when I looked up similar ordinances, they had a max of 800 square feet. And because I was wondering, some of the lots in Sierra Vista, they could accommodate much larger, but when I saw those other ones, I thought it's probably a reason. Sorry, Gwen. You're clicking your pen at me.
No, it's not at you. Clicking.
She does that to me too.
I'm just doing it. It doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
Does this mean anything, folks?
Anything else?
You go ahead, because I want to make sure I covered everything.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Should folks have more than 2 people in a unit for any period of time? We're not judging that we're not regulating that, we're not fining people for that. So seems kind of
Find some moot
perhaps
point
unnecessary
to even mention it.
It would be based on complaint, right, Matt? If
The
someone
enforcement
had 10
of that,
people living,
the enforcement
yeah.
of that provision would most likely be the result of a complaint, because it wouldn't be noticeable.
Right.
Just from, our, an inspection from the street, for example.
So I'll just say that part of the way that this was brought up was some of the commissioner, or one of the commissioners, did have a concern about the character of the neighborhood, and these standards were developed to make sure that we are in fact not changing the characters of neighborhood. So not having a large family living on one single family residential lot in an accessory dwelling unit. So, but it's just complaint.
It could possibly help on the short-term rental issue, where you have, a couple vacationing and renting it out versus a whole family, which could present a larger impact on the neighbors. So again, based on the size and the purpose and intent of a single-family residential district, we're recommending a cap be placed to, again, ensure compatibility of the use.
I disagree with that.
Well, I
So
hear
on
you.
the,
What's your disagreement, Sarah?
telling people how many people are allowed to live in a house?
Not a house, the accessory dwelling unit.
I know.
Yeah.
But it would be a house if you meet
So it's over-regulatory to me. That is over-regulatory to me.
Could we ever approve something outside this standard for some cases?
Is there an appeal?
Right. Is there a way to, for a like, I'm thinking of these big lots by the college that you wouldn't even, I mean, there's so much space. They could probably put like 5 of these on. You know, no, I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying maybe make an exception and make a larger one or.
The key gets back to what is a single-family residence and what is the character of that community, and it's for the protection of the neighbors as well as the individual that owns the house that wants to make the change. The question is, how far do you go and become a multifamily or a multifamily residence versus a single? Because people invest $2,000, $3,000 for a house, and it's in a single-family neighborhood. They probably want a single-family neighborhood rather than a potential apartment complex or a small apartment complex immediately next door. So we need to make sure that we have standards that are reasonable, and we're not going to answer all the issues, but we need to have reasonable standards.
Can you talk about the process if someone disagrees with the code? The appeal process goes before you, actually.
You mean to deviate from the established standards? Then the special magistrate would consider the petition and the facts of have to present something unique to the property that would set it apart from similarly situated properties in the same zoning district. So a hardship, personal or financial, would not constitute grounds for granting a variance. So the best time to address if you don't agree with the standards is now during the legislative process in the form of amendment to the proposal. So.
No, I think what was asked, Matt, you gave us a great answer. However, as an applicant, if I was wanting a dwelling unit on my house, and for whatever reason I needed 3 people to live in that dwelling unit, and you gave me the variant, went through the process, get the variance in 2, but now I realize I got to get 3. How do I go back and appeal that decision for the 2?
Through the same process I just described, it would probably be hard pressed to support
doesn't come to you for an exception to policy type of issue.
No.
It goes right to the special master. Chuck?
Mr. Mayor, I think more fundamentally too is that, obviously, enforcement in terms of numbers of people that may be living in an accessory dwelling unit would be very difficult and would have to be done on some sort of a complaint basis. I think the real issue comes back to what you were talking about in terms of how does that impact the neighborhood? Are there more cars? Is there more disruption to the neighbors as a result of having more people live in the ADU? That kind of thing. So that's why the standards are in place. We do have our, hearing officer and variance processes that are in place that we could use to grant an exception if you do decide on a stricter standard.
And that's what I was looking for. Thank you. The words weren't coming to me on what it was
The
called.
variance.
Yeah, on the
I didn't say that?
hearing
Oh,
officer.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That helped me. I appreciate it.
Okay. But there are very strict criteria for the granting an approval of a variance.
Right.
And there's really no avenue for us to support one that's contrary to the laws that you establish. So now would be the time, if you don't want to impose an occupancy maximum, to address that.
This is another 30-day. Oh, excuse
Yeah,
me.
this 30-day window. Yes, ma'am. Did you have something?
No, I'll wait to hear what the public has to say. I put it out there, and I feel like I understand why the number's there. It makes sense, but. Oh yeah, we had 5 comments on.
We had the 30-day period.
We've gone through the 30-day period.
Well,
It's
this
up
will
for
be approval
adoption.
on Thursday.
Right.
It's gonna come to vote Thursday.
Yeah.
You can propose an amendment to remove
If you want to propose
that.
an amendment on Thursday, you're welcome to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
And as long as the amendment is removing, not adding regulation, then we can adopt it at that time and not extend the comment period.
I think that this has personally been talked about and, again, looked at very closely, so I'm perfectly fine with the way that it's written, the changes and the compromises that have been made to make this work.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you, Matt. We appreciate your efforts. We now move on to item number 7, Mr. Chief Thrasher.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The resolution before you will be to formally adopt the donation from the Friends of the Service to Animal Shelter, the Animal Care Mobile Unit. They have been, for multiple years, been raising funds to purchase this unit and donate it to the city. This stemmed out of years ago from the Monument Fire and all the evacuations that had to take place of both families and animals to create the ability to evacuate multiple animals at once through this care trailer. In addition, it'll be used for adoption events, it'll be used for vaccination clinics, it'll be used for hoarding situations and the such. So recently they raised enough money, were able to purchase the trailer, they have delivered it to the city, and this will formally accept that donation. It will be out in the parking lot on Thursday night, so everybody can take a look at it. And then on Saturday, there will be a formal dedication and an open house at Animal Control as part of this, with all the donors coming in. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
And the event's from 12 to 5 on Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Questions, comments?
No, just congratulations
Yeah.
that they got this done and all
amazing.
their stress, and it's beautiful. It looks great.
It is, and there's been some various iterations. The original company that they were going to go through went out of business, and so they actually, turns out this one's a little bit more useful, to be quite honest with you. And a little cheaper.
Looks good.
We got a good look at it at the Christmas parade.
Yeah.
It looks really nice. It's way bigger than I thought it would be. I'm like, you could fit some. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the chief? Thanks, Chief. We do want to say thanks to all the folks that donated, and the organization that put it together was
Friends of the Service to Animal Shelter.
So if it's end of the year, people got a couple nickels to rub together that they want to give away, that's a good organization that's helping the community, so we thank them for that. We now go on to item number 8, Mr. Felix.
Mayor, members of council, this is our annual equipment financing intent resolution. We always put in the budget process, we list the equipment that the city is looking at financing. We do put the financing package together at the end of the fiscal year, put it out to bid in May. You vote if we need to do financing, we do put it out, and then it comes to you in June for the approval for the tax exempt financing. The reason we go in the method that we do is if equipment doesn't come in and we already have the financing in place, we're paying interest on items with money sitting in a trust account, and you can be sure they don't pay you as much interest as you are paying them on the money sitting there. And that way too, if we don't need to do a financing, we avoid it. If we've already put it into place, then you're stuck with the financing. IRS regulations require us to pass this resolution saying that we reasonably intend to finance the equipment when it comes in. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Mr. Felix? Okay, again, this is a routine thing we do every year, so thank you, Mr. Felix. We next go on to item number 7, Ms. Flassar.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this agenda item will accept a grant from the Arizona State Parks Non-Motorized Grant Program for the Garden Canyon Linear Park. The improvements will take place near the trailhead at St. Andrews Drive. There is an existing unimproved trailhead at the location, but the funding from this grant will add a stable parking surface and an ADA-compliant parking area. The improvements will provide a base for future master plan improvements to the park. The grant amount is $80,000, approximately $80,000, with an in-kind city match of about $12,000. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Lassar? Yes, ma'am.
Just want to comment a little bit about that. There are plans to improve the linear park in a future project. I think folks would be interested in hearing that, and also that the park exists itself. You know, I think a lot of folks aren't even aware of it being there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Calhoun, the first step of the park took place probably 10 years ago
at
when
least.
those areas were developing with the multi-use path. It was master planned at that time, includes future features such as restrooms in some areas, playground areas. Those would be put where appropriate and aren't necessarily planned for all areas. So yes, we have future plans for the park, but establishing a stable parking area was step one to making the rest of those a reality.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms.
No, it's
Lassar. We
exciting.
appreciate it. I'm sorry?
I know, it's exciting.
Okay. We now move on to item number 10. Mr. Batuchik.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, members of the council. Item 10 represents the tourism agreement that we have up for renewal with the Cochise County Tourism Council. The city has been working with all the communities as well as Cochise County for the last 20 years on cooperative efforts in tourism, with the exception of Huachuca City. In 2019, this past June, the city of Tombstone had determined that they would opt out of the existing IGA, and I'll get into some of the reasons for that here in a second. But that became the catalyst then to look at our current agreement and see if any potential changes could be made that might make the Tourism Council more effective. So we've been in negotiations with the county and the other communities in order to reach this new agreement. One of the main things, actually there's two main things we're looking at. One was an effort to incorporate the wine growing abilities in Cochise County, as well as the outdoor recreational activities that are in Cochise County, and market those more effectively. In the past, we were just looking at the historical, cultural parts of Cochise County, and which is what Tombstone is, of course, is really into, and that's one of the reasons why they were wanting to opt out, and the other communities were looking at trying to expand the marketing base to incorporate a lot of the new things that are going on in the county. And the other was recognition that economic development efforts needed to be coordinated better, and we were thinking that through this group, we could get all the communities together on a county-wide basis and incorporate economic development as well as tourism within this agreement. So that is the agreement we struck. The Board of Supervisors recently approved this. And the funding level is the same for the city as it was under the previous agreement at $20,000. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Yeah, I mentioned a couple of the other cities, their bill went up a little bit, but we stayed the same, so that's good.
Yeah, we were able to get a little bit more.
Only thing better than that is going down.
Yeah.
So, any other questions, comments?
Well, as usual, I have a comment. Simply, you know, I think in the spirit of us all working together, this is a good thing that we're involved in. I also think it's very difficult to actually understand the benefit to our community in working with everybody. And I know we often hear the comment, what's good for the region is good for the individual communities. I think that's a stretch. I don't have an objection to this at all. You know, we're aware that it exists. I guess this is kind of a wish that we could understand better what our, I hate to use a term because I don't think it fits, a return, what return we get for not only the $20,000 that we contribute, but to the staff involvement that we have with this. I want to believe, and I think to some degree it's true, that we do benefit, and that we do benefit from this contribution, but I wish there were something a little more solid to base that belief on.
One of the things we probably need to do to try to address that, Chuck, during the budget process is if there's a way to tie I'm thinking primarily restaurant, bar sales, hotel sales, and either an increase based on where it is now and any new campaigns that we do with tourism, how much it's increased over the years based on our investment. I know I'm sure we get more than 20 grand back a year in that market area already, but what else, how do we track that is really the question.
Actually, Mayor Mueller, in one of the sessions that I had with the county and the other managers, our staff, Judy, put together a very effective presentation that had the metrics that you're talking about included in the presentation. And I think, it would be good to share that with you and update that when the budget comes up so you can take a look and see what types of things we're looking at and the effectiveness of doing this. There's no question that we're serving as fiscal agents, so there's some in-kind there. There's no question that we have more staff available for these efforts than the other communities. But I also think there is probably some benefit if the group can work towards items like the port of entry in Douglas and that kind of thing. I think there's probably some good benefit in other parts of the county to Sierra Vista if we're working together. So, but I think if you saw the presentation, you would see that there is some effectiveness there.
What I'd like you to ask you to do, Chuck, is have Judy email the presentation to council, if we could. And then council members, when you review that, if you got questions, please get out and talk to Judy individually so you're up to speed.
Okay. And in addition to that, I think, and I'm glad we're talking about it
Do it
here.
during the budget.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the public also need to be aware. Sometimes it's really, people don't often go to the website and find these things, but I just think it's important that you said it out loud, that it's out there, the information is there if folks want to look it up.
Well, this came very close to falling apart when Tombstone decided to pull out, and there were other communities in the county that were, wondering about whether or not they should continue to join in. And I kind of made overtures to them that we would be happy to go it alone or work separately with the county, but that kind of brought everybody back to the table, and we were able to get this agreement struck at that point. But it was pretty close.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Chuck. For the rest of the meeting, then, we've got call the public and comments and requests to council. And then we'll go on to that's item A on our agenda today of A through F, okay? Item B is trip reports and recent trips, meetings, future meetings. Any comments, ma'am?
I am still working on my travel report for you. It was a lot more hectic than I thought it would be coming back to.
Tell us where you went.
For NLC's City Summit in San Antonio. I'm sorry, National League of Cities, and we were there for three days. It was a lot of information in a short amount of time, and I'm trying to do a really good job putting this together. So it's taken me longer with the holiday and a couple of hectic weeks, but I'll have it to you soon.
Okay.
I just want to follow up with Carolyn's comments too, because I also attended the National League of Cities. It was for some reason extremely interesting this year. There was, I think, the workshops we attended, some we went to together, some we went to separately, were very informative. And I didn't bring my notes. I'd like to just give you a brief overview, maybe at our next work session. But I did want to mention that the overall theme for the NLC this year was housing, affordable housing. It's always good to see our community, not only in this area but in others, seems to stand out in being right there with what's going on nationally as far as things like housing or transportation, making the efforts to do the best that we can for the community. So that was kind of reassuring. I wanted to comment too that Carolyn is going to start representing us on the Military Communities Commission, and that's a really, is that okay that?
Oh, yeah, of course. It just, I wasn't officially accepted yet, so
Oh.
I put the application out there.
If they don't accept you, we'll talk to them. But
I don't know
at
how
any
this
rate,
works.
at any rate, it was an extremely informative workshop, conference this year, very much so. Rachel agrees?
Anybody else? Okay, item C is boards and commission updates. Anything going on in boards and commission the council needs to know?
I'll be attending EAC next week.
Comment.
Okay.
Most of the airport commission is here. I think all of them are here. We had a lengthy discussion about the proposed changes to commissions at our last airport commission meeting. And I don't know whether you want me to save it or the next agenda item, or you want me
Actually,
to
the
go
next agenda
over my
item is
notes
another
now?
thing. Based on the, I'll tell everybody know that based on the hour, the lateness of the hour, and the fact that we're supposed to be done in 5 minutes, we have another discussion after the future discussion items at council requests. So and some of us have to be somewhere at 5. So we may not have that overall commission discussion, depending on time.
Mr. Mayor?
I will offer you a time to speak. I'm not gonna be impolite and cut you off.
Okay.
Okay, if you wanna make comments now, you're welcome to make comments, but,
I will let them make the comments, and I'll share mine at the end.
okay,
Because I want to save that time.
all right.
If we're going to be short on time today.
I did have one thing I wanted to say, and it, what Sarah said triggered it. Last time at our EAC meeting, there was quite a bit of discussion about the proposal that the suggestion or recommendation that the EAC be changed to a task force rather than a commission. So I was saving that part of the conversation for when we talk about commissions.
Okay. All right, so anything on liaison updates?
Parks and Rec meeting tonight, y'all more than welcome to come to it.
Okay, future discussion items and requests of council. Any future discussion items or requests for council?
Oh, man. I'll have to send it, email it to you.
Okay. The item E next is the discussion on the composition of the Sierra Vista MPO Planning Organization Board. And I will share with you that we will be seeing sometime in January some changes with the agreement for your approval with the MPO and how the support that we provide to the MPO is going to should be configured and it's not many substantive changes. After much deliberation on the MPO board, there's one issue that I told the board that I would discuss with the council, and that is the actual composition of the board. Right now, the board has 3 voting members from the city, 1 voting member from the county, 1 voting member from Huachuca City, and a non-voting member that represents the state highway department. One of the suggestions from the member from Huachuca City is we change that so we have 2 city members, so drop in one member. We have 1 county member, we have 1 Huachuca City member, and we make the Arizona's Highway Department representative a voting member. Now, in the other MP, and this is based on what other MPOs do, but the other thing that's different for us is the Arizona Highway Department representative. It's a 6-year, well, is normally their member that's on the State Transportation Board, which provides good information and input to the State Transportation Board in a kind of a direct line. But what happens in Cochise County, in Seago, we have 4 counties that serve the area, and what happens is that we rotate that member from county to county, and it's a 6-year term. So right now, it is in fact Cochise County's opportunity to have a member on the board. The fortunately, the county supervisors did in fact move to put and voted in Richard Searle to serve. What happens then is he fills out an application. It goes to the governor's office for appointment, and that application's been sitting there for almost a year now.
Why?
Well, good question. Damn good question. So it hasn't been acted on, he hasn't been appointed, so right now we don't have a member available,
A county member.
a county, from our county available. Now, what was being proposed by the member from Cochise City is that whoever is the state representative is always a voting member on the board. And I have a problem with that when it's not a Cochise County individual. Because at least a Cochise County individual understands what's going on in this part of the county. If it's somebody from Santa Cruz or Graham or Greenlee, they're not going to be as interested in doing that. So our options are basically to be discussed with the board before we come back to you with a recommendation is leave it the way it is, or go down to the 5 members and making the Arizona the Arizona ADOT representative, who is our member on the board, as a voting member. So those are kind of the two options, and I wanted to discuss that with you and give you an opportunity to comment on it or think about it. And the question really is, in my mind, is we need to have a board for the MPO that actually can function, has people that attend, and we don't have to worry about issues with quorum or not having a quorum. So for me, it's kind of a mechanical issue, and I currently support keeping it the way it is. Another discussion point that was made was, well, why don't we add a county member and make it 7? But the county has said they don't want to either have a elected official or, which is required by the bylaws, or change the bylaws to have a staff person on the board. So basically, the two viable solutions are, it remains the same, or it changes and we lose a seat, and we have the ADOT representative who would right now would be Mr. Searle once he's appointed, but it's a vacant seat right now. And in 4 years, 5 years, whenever his term rotates, we would have somebody else from another county attend.
I don't understand the ADOT rep being Mr. Searles. Does he work for ADOT?
No, he is appointed to the ADOT Transportation Board.
Oh, now it's making sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now.
Okay?
Oh, wow, so, yeah.
So, I know this is the first time most of us, for at least 4 of you were first hearing this for the first time.
Can I ask, what is our representation on the technical committee for the MPO? Who's the city's representative on the technical committee?
Matt does the technical committee.
Jing and Sharon.
Jing.
So do we also have majority of representation on the technical committee?
Do we currently have one?
Do we have majority representation on the technical committee?
And this is a recommendation, a committee that only recommends, it doesn't govern.
Correct. The city has, if memory serves, 4 representatives on the tech committee. Matt, myself, Jing Lu, the city engineer, and Mike Norman, the transit administrator. We used to have a majority on the tech committee. I don't believe we do anymore. It would be close.
Who else is on
The county?
The county, Cochise City, ADOT.
Is 2.
So.
The county has 2?
What's the engineer name?
Jackie Watkins.
Jackie Watkins and Dan Coxworth.
Dan Coxworth.
And Matthew Williams from Cochise City.
Yes, somebody from Cochise City. And then there's an ADOT representative. I believe there's at least one more because it's an odd number, but I can't think off the top of my head who that is.
I think that's it.
So they make recommendations to the board.
Yeah, they can make recommendations to the board. But the board is the issue, and if we change the composition of the board, obviously it's going to have to come back and be reflected and approved by us as a council.
So
Yeah,
I
well,
don't have a problem with Cochise City's recommendation of us giving up a seat and having ADOT Transportation Board member being on the MPO board, primarily because we need to ensure that we always have ADOT's voice there, even though if they're not from Cochise County, they do weigh in on what's going on in the state budget for ADOT. They do weigh in on the state transportation plan, and it doesn't matter what county they're from, they would have that information and be able to present it, in my opinion. And it would behoove us, we are the ones responsible for bringing forward the information about the county, about service in the county in Wichita City. And so I don't see the concern. I don't know, to me, that's not a concern like it is for you, that they wouldn't be from the county in 6 years.
Okay.
So, no, I was just going to say, I want to make sure we keep in mind that I think it was Mr. Lane that was in the meeting when we discussed this with the MPO, and he had made the statement that ADOT would not actually vote on a lot of the things. He had mentioned they would recuse themselves, so then we're going to run into a tie situation. So that's something to keep in mind. And then, I mean, I don't have a problem with the ADOT person. They're already there giving their input. They just don't vote at the moment. So that, to me, is taken care of. But I just want to make sure we got that out, is that he had said that they would recuse themselves from quite a few votes. So that gave me pause for concern with the tie situation. We're back to the even number.
Any thoughts?
Personally, I think we should just keep it the same item, never in favor of giving up a seat.
So keep it 3.
So I would, and especially if they're not going to be able to vote for a lot of things.
Who
Yeah.
typically are the city folks that are on the commission?
You have myself, and you have Sarah, and you have Rachel.
So county members, I mean,
And the
council
county members is,
Council.
yeah,
It
council
has to
members.
be
It has to be an
elected
elected official. And you
they're
vote,
appointed.
and you voted on that too a while
Yeah, I
back.
remember now, yeah.
Okay. Somebody's gonna explode.
It's my son trying to
Okay.
get a hold of me.
Other discussion? What I'm hearing is the majority is basically saying keep it the way it is.
I'm in favor of just keeping
And,
it.
and Sarah, I think you made some good points. When this comes up for discussion at the MPO board, I'd appreciate if you bring those up again so we can talk through those with the county and the Wichita City member as
Yep.
well. Okay. Anything else on this issue? Okay, we now go to item F, and we are running out of time. What I'm going to propose, we have one gentleman that would like to address us tonight. I would ask him to, if he's got the option, he can either address us tonight or he can address us later. And then I'm not going to go through the discussion process, because by the time we get started, I'd have to get up and leave.
So this will be on the agenda.
It'll be
at our
on the
next
agenda
work
in
session.
the work session. It'll stay on the agenda until we get to the point where we're ready to go to resolution. Okay, then we'll go through the same public process for each of the resolutions dealing with this item. So, Mr. Kennedy, sir, would you please? Well, you got 5 minutes. Take your time.
Do it a lot faster than that. My name is Tom Kennedy. I'm a member of the Airport Commission this year. And my aviation background was that I was a private pilot, I was an Air Force pilot, and I was an airline pilot. So I have some experience in 20 pilots in the community here, and it's addressed to Mayor Rick Mueller, councilpersons William Benning, Sarah Paquecho, Carolyn Humphrey, Rachel Gray, Christine Wolf, Glenn Calhoun. The City Commission plan on the Sierra Vista website will have the effect of disbanding the Airport Commission as we know it today. We believe this would be a serious mistake, and here is why. The Airport Commission consists of 7 pilots, which are mostly here, with varying levels of experience. It meets monthly along with other aviators such as the Experimental Aircraft Association, the Sierra Vista Aero Association, and Fort Huachuca personnel. This combined group advises the city on many things such as flight planning, fueling, and operations. It also advises the city on the most important item of all, safety. It is important to understand that pilots are the only ones qualified to provide this insight. No one else can do it. If the Airport Commission is disbanded, this group will no longer meet, and their contributions to airport operations and safety will be permanently lost. This could be disastrous for the flying public, as it potentially opens the door to costly and deadly accidents in the future. We urge you to rethink the proposed changes to the Airport Commission and leave things the way they are. Now, this letter is signed. I'm going to give the signed letter to the mayor. The Sierra Vista Airport Commission, consisting of George Pullman, Frank Flores, Aaron Ireland, myself, James Short, Joe Spurgeon, Lee Gray, the Sierra Vista Aero Association, consisting of Steve Waltz, Larry Porteau, George Pullman, John Nelson, Angelo Petropoulos, Jerry Proctor, and the Experimental Aircraft Association consists of Gene Schmall, Cliff Van Fleet, Monica Short, Charlotte Porteau, George Clark, Ben Middleton, and Larry Porteau. That's the letter. I have a couple of closing comments, but are there any, I've got about 2 minutes left. Are there any questions on this? Does anybody have any questions? So I'll just go to my closing comments. The Airport Commission is unique among commissions because safety is involved. Aviation is inherently dangerous and accidents can be deadly. Working with other pilots at the airport, this commission identifies safety issues and helps the city resolve them. A single individual, as currently being proposed, cannot possibly perform this function, and that is why the proposed change will not work. The Airport Commission works effectively as a group, and as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We implore the mayor and the city council to please leave the Airport Commission alone. And with that, I will bring this letter to you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. We appreciate your comments.
This is the letter plus the signature page.
Okay. And I need to get a copy of your comments for the record.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll just give it to you.
Okay. If you need those, we'll make a copy and get it back to you. Okay. And we'll put those in the record. Thank you. Final comments from council? Nobody? Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for attending tonight. I appreciate the Airport Commission and the students that briefed us as well. And we'll meet on Thursday. Seeing nothing else before the council, meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Tom.
We just follow
Mr.
the
Kennedy.
signs.
Yeah, and Ben. I hope you feel better right soon.